Hey guys, Man here for another deck profile, and as you can see from the playmat, the sleeves, and the thumbnail, we are looking at the new version of Imperialdramon. As most people know, as of this recording, it is still basically the first week of release, basically. And I wanted to put out a deck profile for it so that people kind of have a general sense of how to build the deck. The deck doesn't really change really that much. We're mainly just adding in one of the new tamer, the Paladin mode, and we are adding in the new option card, Return to the Primogenitor. I don't know how to pronounce that properly, but that's just how I pronounce it. But basically, the option card allows us to basically survive battle and immediately digivolve in the process of surviving the battle, which is really cool. And the new tamer is actually pretty solid too in how it works. But aside from that, the deck doesn't really change that much. We're still our main plan, of course, is to still go into Pyodramon and just swing and do damage, and then go into Dragon mode. But now with the new option, we basically go into Pyodra and we play the option to basically make it so we don't die by battle, and then we end up just evolving into Dragon mode for basically zero cost, or into Fighter mode for zero cost. So pretty solid. But yeah, no. Let's actually get into the deck profile so I can show you what I mean. So for the eggs, of course, we are running three of the Demi Vmon. The Demi Vmon from BT12 is still one of literally the most solid eggs for this deck because you want to get draw power as soon as possible. I originally was running the new Demi Vmons from BT16, but power doesn't really mean much when you can't draw into building anything. And this is off of basically a lot of playtesting I've done, and of course with how my friend has basically been winning our locals for the past like basically month, or basically all of EX6. Shout out to my friend Kyler for the help with this deck. Honestly, this deck I really love Imperial, but I honestly would rather get as much input on it as possible because there are just so many builds, and I want to build towards consistency, and that's also what my friend is building towards. So I opted to kind of go with how he built his, but with slight changes with how I like it. Then we run two of the old Demi Vmons from BT3 because we usually, when we swing in, we are swinging with Pyodra, which has jamming, which does give us a draw one. So basically, all these eggs are there to just keep drawing us as many cards as possible so that we can just turbo into our main strategy and just go for a game, basically. So, really solid. But yeah, that's basically all the eggs we run. We run a split of 3-2, which actually feels pretty solid. You might want to run like 4-2 if you really wanted to. You could increase this maybe to 4 and then run one of this, because both basically accomplish the same thing. Though this one specifically requires you to have a green Digimon in play, which does count your guy. But this one usually works better if you just have an XV, so I like to split because it works pretty well. For eggs, obviously, we are running 4 of the Vmon from BT12. I'm running the Ramen ones from my Magna X deck. Basically, this is one of your main searchers. On play, you get to look at the top 3, grab a 3 type and a Tamer with Davis and his traits, and its inherent allows us to DNA Digivolve at the end of our turn. Then we run 4 of the BT12 Wormmon as well because it's basically the same exact card except that it grabs a Davis, and the inherit is basically the same as well. Then we run. This is where the deck kind of changes up. This is my own personal spice on it. We run 1 Promo Vmon for the reduced evolution cost. One of the BT16 Vmon because it allows us to gain back a memory when one of our other Digimon digivolves. So pretty solid because we can digivolve into Stingmon with this on the field and then make it basically only 1 cost. Then we run 1 promo Wormmon because this helps us search out our option cards specifically and our tamers and basically all of our level 5s and higher. So pretty solid. Then we run 1 of the Wormmon from BT16 because this basically allows us to digivolve into something 3 type for a cost of 1, so really solid. So as you can see, we're doing 1 of each of the promos and then 1 of each of the BT16 ones. I like kind of this split because you have because the main thing is that sometimes you can miss with this Wormmon. Originally, I was running this at 4, same with my friend, but we kind of reduced it down because that way we can fit these other free rookies in, especially the promo Vmon, which helps us reduce costs, but mainly also this, because this Wormmon's actually pretty solid, because when attacking, you get to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and with this one, you actually gain a plus 2,000 boost on your turn, which can actually help you boost over certain Digimon, like especially against Tyrant if they don't have the boost, so you really need that. But yeah, that's basically all the rookies in the deck. As you can see, we are running an exact number of 12. Originally, I know that some builds were running only like maybe 10 to 11, but I like having this many because that way we consistently see rookies and we consistently get to evolve and do stuff basically. For level 4s, we only run 10. We run, of course, the BT12 X Vmon because, of course, your turn when this guy would DNA Digivolve, you gain a memory, and of course it gives jamming to anything Imperialdramon or Freenet's trait. Then we have Stingmon, which is basically the exact same card, except that when it's Imperialdramon or 3-type, it gains Piercing, so really strong. Then we run 1 XV from EX1 because it has jamming and it gives jamming. Then we have 1 Stingmon because it can be played for a cost of 3 instead of 4 if you have a blue on the field. And of course, it's when attacking of draw 1 is not once per turn. So when you untap a Pyodra and this is underneath, you get to get that extra draw, which can help you go basically draw into your Dragon mode and your Fighter modes. So really solid. Then for level 5s, obviously, we are running the 4 Pyodramons from BT16. This guy's really busted. There is a reason why this card is going up in price. A, because it's a really good card, but B, also because of buyouts currently for it because of the hype. But yeah, he's just really solid. He just spends the whole board. He gets to swing twice, really strong. And of course, he has Partition and Grants Partition, which is really strong in this format. Then we have 2 of the Pyodramon from the original starter deck for Imperialdramon. This one is just there to basically do removal and, of course, swing twice, so pretty strong. Then we have the BT12 Pyodramon as well, because this, in conjunction with our Tamer, can strip 6 sources from a Digimon, which basically reduces them down to almost nothing, and then your fighter mode can just basically take it down at that point. But yeah, that's all the level 5s we run. We run an exact number of 8. For level 5s, we technically run only 2, or technically 3 different ones, but 2 of them are basically fighter modes. Of course, we're running 4 dragon modes. I genuinely do not understand builds that don't run a full set of dragon modes, because dragon mode is really, really strong. Like, the fact that he can suspend a Tamer, unsuspend himself, and suspend something to make it so it can't unsuspend, but also the fact is that when your opponent would Digivolve by effect, which includes trainings and a lot of different Digimon effects, so it will trigger this Imperialdramon's effect to Digivolve into fighter mode. So I don't get why people play less than 4 of this, because he is basically your main boss. The fighter modes are just there for removal. This guy is honestly your main boss for swinging, which is really crazy. Then we have 2 fighter modes from BT12. This guy's really solid. The fact that he can suspend the whole board and then bottom deck the whole board if you have a dragon mode underneath. So in conjunction with this, you can basically do this on your opponent's turn and wipe their board, which is really powerful. So, oh yeah, also he does get an extra boost of security attack +1. Basically, this Digimon gets plus 1,000 for each color in its sources, and while it has 2 or more colors, it gains a security attack +1 and blocker. So it's a really good card, so I highly recommend running 2. Then the one we have is the fighter mode Ace. We honestly don't need more than 1 of this, especially now that we have Paladin mode. This is just there to do more removal and of course do extra checks, so pretty solid. For level 7s, we're only running 1, and of course you know it as Paladin mode. I don't technically have Paladin modes yet. I'm still waiting on them in the mail as of recording, so these are my proxies. But this guy is just really busted. You have to run 2 copies. For those that do not know what this card does, especially because it's brand new, it's of course an ace, so it can Digivolve on top of one of the fighter modes or on top of the dragon modes. The main thing is that on Digivolving and on play, you get to trash all the sources of your opponent's Digimon and then return all cards you and your opponent's trash to the bottom of the deck. And if this effect returned to level 7, you get to gain 3 memory. So if you end up returning one of the Paladin modes that gets hit in trash, you basically gain 3 memory, which is really cool. Then, when attacking by returning one of your opponent's Digimon with no sources to the bottom of the deck, this guy gets to untap. So you get to, so in conjunction, you could potentially, if you really are crazy enough, you can go ace, swing, tap, and then you can digivolve this for 5 cost if you have enough memory, and then do another swing bottom deck, and then just keep going from there, which is a really crazy combo, but it can happen. The only downside to that is that you would essentially eat -9 in overflow, so don't do that. That's just a crazy idea I had before. But yeah, you have to run 2 of this because it's just literally, it's one of the most busted aces in existence, so you need to run 2. The rest of the deck is basically options, but we only run options and tamers, but we only run one option, which is specifically the Return to the Primogenitor. This card is really crazy. It's basically a trap card on your opponent's turn or your turn, basically. Basically, whenever your Digimon with 3 trait would be deleted other than by one of your effects, you can activate the delay by digivolving this Digimon into a card with Imperialdramon in its name without paying the cost. You get to prevent that deletion. But its main effect is different, where one of your Digimon may digivolve into a level 5 or higher Digimon card with the 3 trait in hand with the Digivolution cost reduced by 4. So basically anything level 5 or higher basically becomes 0 cost at that point. And then you get to place this in your battle area. So the cool thing is that sometimes when you do not see a Sting or an XV, you can basically if you don't see the XV or you don't see the Sting, you get to hard evolve this into a Imperialdramon. Sure, you don't get the DNA effect, but you get to basically protect it by battle, so that's pretty solid. And then you get to prevent that deletion if they were to remove it from the field in any way by digivolving in Dragon mode. But it has to be by deletions, not by bouncing, sadly. But that's where partition comes in, so you should be fine regardless. I was originally running only 2, but 3 actually feels a little bit more solid because that way we can see it consistently. And the cool fact is that it has a really good security effect where you can play a Tamer card with Davis or Ken from your hand or trash without paying the cost. So if your opponent manages to pop one of your Tamers, you can just play it back if they hit this in security, which is really solid. For Tamers, we're obviously, of course, running the 4 of Davis and Ken from BT16, because this guy basically starts you up and makes you go from 0 to 100, especially if you already have an XV in your raising. You just push up, and then this guy plays out a worm or a V. You search out the last missing piece, Joe Gress into that, swing, 2 times, suspend their whole board, turn into Dragon mode. You get to do basically the whole thing because of this Tamer, and you get to gain memory, and you get to strip sources. So you got to run 4 copies. Then we run, of course, 3 copies of Davis because he is our memory setter, and of course he can search both blue and green, which is a lot of our decks, so we get to basically get 2 cards no matter what with this card, like 90% of the time, so really solid. Then we run 1 of the new Davis and Ken. This one is specifically based on their appearances from the movie. This card's actually, it's not the best, but it's still a really good inclusion because it is also a memory setter. So you have 4 memory setters in this case, which is really solid. Basically, all turns when one of your level 5 or higher trait would be deleted in battle. By suspending this Tamer, you may play 1 level 4 or lower card from this guy's sources without paying the cost. And at the end of your turn, one of your free type Digimon may attack an opponent's Digimon, which is really solid. So you just run the 1 of, just as a precaution for other scenarios. But yeah, that's basically the deck profile. As you can see, it hasn't really changed much from BT16 or EX6. The main inclusions are, of course, the new Tamer, the new Option, and the new Ace. And these 3 cards basically make the deck, go from it's still tier 1, but it's, even higher in tier 1. It's basically, right next to Ancient Guru at this point, alongside Numamon. These 3 decks will basically be the top decks for the format, which is what I'm predicting. If it's wrong, it's whatever. That's just what I'm going off of from information, hindsight of looking at, Japan and Asia in general. But I feel this deck is really strong, and it honestly will be one of the top decks regardless, thanks to all the new support that it's gotten over the last 2 sets, 16 and 17. So if you really want to build this, I highly recommend trying this out and essentially using this as a template because it's just really good. It's really strong. It has a lot of counters to a lot of things. It has good, really good protection. I always stress with every deck, if you do not have a way to protect your guy, it's not going to be a good time for you. That's why I tend not to play decks without that unless they're really decent. Like for example, like Numamon does not have any protection whatsoever, but when it dies, it gives you so much from it. Sure, it can be balanced. Sure, it can be bottom decked and all that other cool stuff. But at the same time, you can recover much faster in that deck, thankfully, compared to other decks. But this has the protection that I've always liked, especially with like Greymon and Garurumon have had. So really solid. But anyway, as usual, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys next time.